Hello, friends, and allons-y! You're back with the Hit or Miss Doctor Who podcast for an impromptu entry into our second series in which we look at Cybermen stories. But wait, there's more. We're actually crossing the streams with an appearance from our Series 1 focus, the Daleks, a true Series 1 and 2 crossover. We do spoil you. I'm your regular host, Michael Wilson, braving the void once again to bring you some patented geeking out. I'm joined by my loyal companion and co-host, DK.
Hello.
Welcome, DK.
If we end up on Mars, I'm going to kill you.
I was going to say who you're going to call, but you beat me to a better quote, so that's fair enough. And we were going to be joined by some other guests, but it seems like they all fell through and ended up stranded in Pete's World. But we do have one other person joining us. I'm not burning up a stone to speak to him, although our internet connection sometimes makes it feel like that. It's the reason for the episode's existence, guest editor, story chooser, Who Game Show's MC, and our good friend, Will.
Hello, thank you for having me. Thank you for setting up this episode for me. It's just like a vanity thing for me at this point. But yeah, I'm back on my feet, so I was like, why not jump on the podcast? So thank you.
Just wanted to be in it, yeah.
Of course, I want to have a little catch up with you guys. It's been a good while.
Yeah, well, I'm always happy to hear your views on Doctor Who. Not that we don't do that off air anyway all the time.
Not so much recently. But, yeah, this will be a nice
I don't know.
back into it.
Well, not so much recently because we don't like talking about the recent episodes.
That's a good thing.
Not a lot to really say, is there? But we'll yeah.
That's why we're going back 20 years to get a decently serviceable episode. Well,
yeah, 20. God, man, 20 years. How old do we feel?
It doesn't seem.
Believe that. Oh, thanks for that. Anyway, we will dive into the story soon. But as always, we do have some other podcast business to get through first with our various sections, starting with our trip through the vortex. Yay. So, normally this would be where we do a little bit of a preamble. We don't have a lot to do because I'm sure you must have been on before, and will have asked you, your favourite Doctor Who stories and your intro to Doctor Who, things like that.
So do you want me to divulge in all of that?
No, I mean, I've asked you, I know you're on air as having done that before, so I don't need to go over all of that.
Yeah. I mean, very briefly, my favorite episode is Listen. My favorite Doctor is the 11th. Started watching with the End of Times, so Matt Smith imprinted himself on he was a mother of a chicken to me when I was like 10 years old, 9 years old, something like that. And watched basically every episode as it aired, besides last Christmas because I was on a cruise, and the Reality War because of personal stuff, and then I chose not to watch it for another 9 months, and that paid off because it was a really awful episode. But yeah, every other episode is live, so big fan. And Who Game Show's creator, so I do Doctor Who game shows as well. So yeah, big Doctor Who.
Yeah. You waited 9 months to watch that episode and wished you just hadn't even bothered and waited another 9.
Wishes, yeah.
I saw that at the cinema, just so you know.
Me too. It was so disappointing.
Anyway, but yeah, so we know your kind of Who history, but because we are technically dealing with Cybermen related stories this series, it's Series 2, but it also is, a guest appearance by Series 1's Daleks. So I've been asking everybody, do you have any favourite Cyberman stories or plot lines that you wanted to shout out?
Oh, that's a good question. So I've recently been rewatching all of Doctor Who. I've got up to the end of Series 5. So based on purely that, I would probably say, I think you've covered it in the series that you've done. The Series 2-parter, that's not this one. Omega's not, Doomsday, not that one. Rise of the Cybermen.
Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a fantastic 2-parter. And not to get into spoilers too much, but it is kind of a shame how much they dropped the ball with the Cybermen after that, because if you think about after this episode, I think the next appearance is like the next Doctor, which does a disservice to the Cybermen, in my opinion. Then you've got Closing Time, then you've got Nightmare in Silver. It's not really till you get to essentially the Cybermen that you actually get like a decent outing for them.
Yeah, and they're ruined in the next episode and immediately dispatched as well. So,
I absolutely agree. But yeah, I do think modern Who, at least, they got it right with their very first appearance, at least the most right up until like the most recent years. But if we're talking classic Who, again, I'm not really impressed with the Cyberman stories. I can't lie, because even stories like The Invasion, that's a very popular story. However, I do wonder if it's for the for the Cybermen themselves, or if it's just to do with the scale, because it's a very big, bold story, especially that early into the show. So is it because of the Cybermen that the story gets flowers, or for another reason, for the scale and the production?
Well, I think it's partly the Cybermen, partly because it's kind of a forerunner for the whole unit thing they're going to be doing in the third Doctor's era. I'm kind of with you and a lot of other people in that it's just too long. 7 episodes is far too long for that story.
I agree, because I think it could have easily been a really good, like solid at least, 4-parter.
Oh,
you didn't
yeah,
need
completely.
half those extra 3 episodes or even 2 episodes, make it 5-parter. It would still be better. But but just generally, I don't think the Cybermen have had too good of a run.
Okay, well, that kind of answers my next question, because I was just going to go around all 3 of us super quickly because of the nature of this episode and say the very simple question, Daleks or Cybermen? So I get the feeling you've probably already answered, Will, but Daleks or Cybermen?
I would say Cybermen for 2 reasons. Purely, I think the Daleks are very intimidating, and by the series for the Stolen Earth, I found them more comical than actual scary. So when it goes around all of the side characters saying, "Oh my God, it's the Daleks," and then they all start crying, I just think, get over it. They're like Stephen Moffat said, they're the most easily defeated villain in the entire show. So they kind of lose their scare factor by series 4, in my opinion. Whereas the other reason is they scare my girlfriend as well. So she's a first-time viewer on the show, and she says she hates the Cybermen. So usually she very casually just watching, enjoying it. Whereas the Cybermen, she actively hides away a little bit. So I think it's very effective.
That's fair enough. Now that I know that, I'm totally going to buy you one of those Cyberman voice changer helmets to wear around your girlfriend.
I was going to say, Halloween, you set, Will.
Thank you. No, because she has been thinking about a Halloween costume being Doctor Who this year, which surprised me. So why not Cyberman? How about that? No, she said no.
So over to you then, DK, for the simple question, Daleks or Cybermen?
Are we talking just in this story or in general?
In general, but I don't want to add too much more to it. I wanted it to be a simple question, so it's more
It's got to be Cybermen. Like Will says,
okay.
They're the Daleks. They're okay, but they're not really scary. Cybermen, especially when you get to things like what we talked about, World Enough and Time, they're freaking terrifying at that point. So Cybermen for me.
Well, that's weird.
Series 10 finale. Thank God you gave the props for that. I went straight to Ascension. Yes. I skipped that one. No, Dr. Falls and what was the first one? Enough Time. Brilliant.
That's probably the best Cyberman story overall, I would say, even if you include the classic ones, controversially.
Yeah,
but anyway.
I mean, let's. If it hinged on closing time, it'd be Daleks. But other than that,
anyway. But no, I mean, it was very close with me, and I am going to be the only one of us to say Daleks. I think I love both, and it's like I said, it's virtually neck and neck. But I'll give Daleks the edge because the design and the idea is more unique. Like the Cybermen have been done in every sci-fi show, whether it's the Borg from Star Trek or the Cybernauts in the Avengers or whatever. So I've kind of, seen it before. And as you guys were kind of hinting at, there's way more not very good Cybermen episodes than there are really poor Dalek episodes. I can only really think off the top of my head of maybe 2 or 3 Dalek stories that I would say are terrible, and way more Cyberman ones. But yeah, I think the Dalek design and everything is more iconic. They had their own thing going with the Dalek mania and everything, and they have 2 big screen films. The Cybermen don't, so I'll go Daleks and be different. So controversial. I think I was surprised.
To be fair, I do agree with the fact that the Daleks have way better stories. But the thing is, I do think whilst the scripts do a disservice to the Cybermen, just as their own being, they're more scary with the stomps and things like that.
Yeah, as you said, the Dalek stories are better, but the Cybermen are scarier.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure I would agree, considering how easily the Cybermen are often defeated as well.
Come on, the Daleks are pretty much a pushover at this point. When you can have a secretary, hit a few keys on a freaking typewriter
Well, no offense, but if you can be defeated by James Corden, harnessing the power of love, you're probably not a really strong bunch.
Yeah, that's right. Fair point.
The chase in the first Doctor, doesn't one get defeated by Dracula throwing it, or like Frankenstein throwing it across the...
Hey, man, it's Frankenstein's monster. That guy's strong.
Okay. Let's just admit they're both as shit as each other and move on.
Yeah.
Nobody hates Doctor Who more than Doctor Who fans, I'll tell you. But anyway.
I don't know.
I like both.
Michael Graves out there.
Fair point. Well said. I love both, but I'll give the Daleks the edge, and you guys have said Cybermen, so unfortunately the consensus is Cybermen. So what do you think, listeners of the podcast? Get in the comments and complain. I'm sure people will. So, that out of the way, we are going to move to the next section of the podcast now then, which is the section that gives the podcast its name. It is the hit or miss section. So, and this week, or for this episode rather, I have handed the reins over to Will for the hit or miss section, because you asked to do this episode, you're going to be editing it, and I thought, we've all done one, so hit or miss. It's not going to be Cybermen related as it has been necessarily, at least I don't think so. I don't think Will has specifically chosen anything cyberized, shall we say. But you have chosen 4 things, I'm told. So, over to you to host the hit or miss section.
Yeah, it's not necessarily Cybermen. I thought it'd be a bit more fun if it'd be varied. So what I've done is I've picked 4 quite meaty topics, in my opinion, 3 stories and 1 companion. So first of all, we have got the Ambassadors of Death, the John Pertwee story. Should we go to... Mike's spoken a lot, I've spoken a lot. So DK?
I love this one. I'd heard a lot of bad things about it over the years. That it didn't live up to the rest of the stories in season 7. So when I finally saw it, I don't know if it's because I went in with low expectations, but I absolutely adore this one. And I think that the end of episode 1 in particular, where Pertwee's doing that, how many beans make 5, that kind of thing, that is absolutely terrifying. When I first saw that, I was just floored at how good it is to me. And yeah, the rest of it never quite lives up to it, but I still think it's a solid story. So I'm going to give it a hit.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I do agree. I'll go next. Why not? I do think John Pertwee's performance in it is fantastic, and I think his performance probably leads and carries a lot of it because, like you said, the final few episodes, it kind of does let up a little bit, especially when they're on the spaceship towards the end. However, I love the sounds, the music. It all sounds like fantastic, led by great performance, obviously. My only detracting factor of this story is probably how similar it kind of is to I think it's the previous story, the Silurian, Doctor Who and the Silurians, specifically the side characters. I feel like a lot of them had the same kind of function, the same kind of character beats, same kind of dialogue. That I kind of, when in the midst of the series, it does seem a little bit weaker because it is treading on like familiar ground, as opposed to it just being like a weaker script generally. It just seems too familiar in my opinion. However, I do still think it's a solid to good story, and I think it's an easy hit. But yeah, 2 hits again. Michael?
Yeah, it's an interesting one that you've picked this, actually, because I have kind of mixed feelings about this. I remember the first time I saw it, I wasn't overly fond of it because I was, hyper aware of the problems with it, which there are many. I mean, it is, again, too long because it's, 6 or 7 parts, whatever it is. So I think there's an awful lot of padding and stretching things out. There's way too much, capture, escape, recapture, lock back up kind of thing, which becomes apparent when you know what you're looking for with these things. And I think it is a bit too ambitious for what it's actually trying to pull off for the 70s. But that said, I did find it a little bit boring the first time I watched it, but I watched it again when the box set came out of Series 7. And when you watch it with the rest of that season, when you're more attuned to the pacing and kind of what that series can and can't do with effects and kind of storytelling, it works a lot better. And I enjoyed it a heck of a lot more. When I was watching it with the rest of the stories of Series 7. Yes, I can see where you're coming from, that is very similar to the Silurians, but I think all of the Series 7 stories are like that. I think it's Terrence Dicks relaying this story about Mac Hulk telling him, you've got 2 stories, mad scientist or alien invasion. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to work with that as best you can when you're stuck on Earth. So I think it was a very interesting story with as you said, some really good acting from John Pertwee. I think Caroline John actually does a pretty good job with what she's given. Not that that's very much throughout the series, but she's good in this, and the guest cast are good, and it's a good concept. Like I said, when you can appreciate the concept a bit more, and you're kind of more tuned to 70s, so I would say in the end, soft hit for me.
Perfect. So that would be 3 hits. No, I do agree. I do think it is perhaps like an episode or two too long. I wouldn't say it's boring, but it's definitely a slow burner. And like I said, so if you're accustomed to it, then what the hell? You can enjoy a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so that's 3 hits from us. Next up is Amy Pond. So, Michael, how about you first?
I like Amy a lot, actually. I think she's probably the companion that's done the best in the modern era, because she doesn't get done dirty and only have one season like a lot of the kind of ones that I wish we'd seen more of. I think she stayed for exactly as long as was the right call. When she left, she was done, unlike certain other companions that we'll probably end up talking about. It wasn't a case of I'm gone and then I'm coming back every freaking 3 years for various reasons. So, her impact isn't dulled by constantly reappearing. And her storyline was good. I think there's one, I'm sure you probably would have mentioned it, but there's one glitch that I don't like, which is when she hits on the Doctor in Series 5 randomly. It's a very small moment, though, and you can forgive it. And the rest of the time, I really like all of her storyline, whether it be the girl who waited stuff, the young girl, or the kind of choosing Rory over the Doctor and trying to, have that going on, and resurrecting her parents who have gone missing and what have you. But yeah, I think she's not burdened by having the kind of Moffat mystery box kind of thing that he gave Clara with the whole impossible girl. It was never really going to live up to the hype, I guess. And she's not, madly in love with the Doctor and having a relationship that people can't get over 20 odd years later. So yeah, she just really works for me. She's one of probably the best all-round companion of the era in terms of how they were written, treated, and acted. So definitely a hit for me.
Yeah, that's a big testament to Karen Gillan, and it's not a surprise that she's done like amazing things, because she is easily one of the best companions in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, okay, that's 1 hit. DK?
I warned to Amy. I didn't like her in season 5 at all. Is it season 5? Am I getting it right? Yeah, I didn't like her at all. I think she was a bit too Stephen Moffat coded at that point. And as a result, I think she came across as very unlikable to me. I didn't like the attitude. I didn't like the way she treated Rory. But I warmed to her over time. I don't know if that was intentional. There was still the odd misstep, like, Stephen Moffat being Stephen Moffat, and in those couple of, was it Children in Need ones where, it's hinted that she fancies herself. But, I mean, it's Karen Gillan, so why wouldn't you? I think in general, in the end, a hit. But if you'd have asked me that at the start of a tenure, I would have said miss. It's through Gillan's performance and better scripts going on, I believe, that she slid into hit territory. So I'd say a mid-range hit for me.
Soft hit, nice. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that short episode, because I completely forgot about that. The only one I can remember is the one with Jenna Coleman, obviously Clara, and then it's implied that she wants to sleep in the same bed with herself. So it's kind of like a recurring beat from Moffat to want his companions to sleep together and fancy each other and for each other. It's really weird.
It's just Moffat for you. I've recently rewatched all of Coupling, and yeah, Moffat just has a thing for really weird sexual fetishes for yourself.
I've heard things recently, but I'm not going to go into it.
Oh no!
Man.
Who's getting cancelled, DK?
I'm not saying a damn thing. We already have enough, rough problems with viewers. We don't want to end up getting cancelled ourselves.
With Amy, after, like I said, having recently rewatched Series 5, it is glaring how, overtly sexualized she is coming on to the Doctor. And I do disagree with Mike, wherein it's not like a contained to one episode kind of ordeal, because to me, it's very strong in the 11th hour when, she tries to claim that Rory's not her boyfriend, to that moment in the 5th episode where she tries seducing the Doctor, which is like way too far. alone anyway. And then you've got like a hint that they've slept together in cold blood. And then there's, the moment after she gets married in the Big Bang, where she tries to snorkel the Doctor twice. Once in the reception room, and then also in the TARDIS towards the end. So throughout Series 5, you have these threads, even after episodes like Amy's Choice, which is a beautiful character piece, and it kind of just reverts after a few episodes in the Big Bang with those moments. I know she, has the high of being excited about his return, but still. And then it's kind of disappointing in that sense that you have episodes like The Girl Who Waited, which is like another very good story. However, it's in like towards the end of Series 2, whereas you already had a story doing similar in the first series with Amy's Choice. So it's like correcting their mistakes when they're almost like 2 series in, with her reaffirming her love of Rory, which is a bit unnecessary in my opinion. But she's more than just, a girlfriend to a man. She's a great companion. She is girl boss. In Wedding with River Song, where she kills the Silence, that was a fantastic moment. 20 minutes of Wedding with River Song, I think she's fantastic.
That is a great line in that episode when she goes like, what is it, River didn't get it all from you, sweetie.
Yeah, and then she kills Malcolm, and that's a fantastic moment. I just think it's a brilliantly acted companion, and, there are little glimpses of like fantastic moments, like in Day of the Moon when she's strapped up on a chair and she's confronted the Silence, when she's a pirate and doing the sword fight. Karen gave herself to the role massively, and it's a strong hit for me despite those moments in Series 5.
It's been really positive actually, haven't we, overall?
Let's see if the next one is as positive. It is the episode Hide from Series 7, so sticking with Matt Smith era kind of theme with this one. I'll go first with this one. It is one of my favourite episodes, so obviously it's going to be a strong hit for me. I think it's severely underrated, and one of the reviews, like professional reviews for this story, says, ironically, it says this is going to be an episode that's talked about for years. And unfortunately, it's one of the episodes that is talked about the least, at least on Twitter, where I'm mostly, active with, at least back in the day, Doctor Who discussions and stuff like that. And I think that's such a shame, because I do agree with that review. It has all the hallmarks of an episode that would be spoken about for a long time. I think it's Village of the Angels before Village of the Angels was even a thing. And I just think it's basically the only issue I really have with it is a dodgy bit of green screen when he walks out onto an alien, not an alien planet, is the Earth, the Caliburn house. But like, I think it was like towards the end of the lifespan of Earth or something like that. Dodgy bit of green screen, that's literally my only fault with it. I think the performances are excellent, the script is excellent, the one-liners are superb, the creature is freaky as fuck, and the side characters are interesting, and I don't actually believe the person who does the photography, I can't remember his name, Alec Palmer, should I say. Alec, he kind of passes him off to be like a real historical character. However, he's not, and that really surprised me when I actually went to research the character, which kind of points in the direction that he's really interesting and, fleshed out, and you want to learn more about him. But he is a character, he's fiction. And it's rare that I have such a connection to a side character like that. So I think they did a really good job with him. And, the psychic with the Impossible Girl stuff towards the end. And, I think Matt Smith's Doctor is underrated in the sense that I think he's very much like the Seventh Doctor, and he's a great manipulator. So the only reason why they're there in that scenario in the first place is because he was interested in a conversation with her to see what she makes of Clara, which I thought was fascinating. And of course, that was similar in Series 6 when he went to the island with the gangers to find out more about Amy and the flesh and things like that. So it's just these little beats that are very consistent with his incarnation that I just think is superb. And it's a strong hit for me. I'll roll it to Mike. Why not?
Oh, no, go to DK first.
Yeah, you go, mate.
Oh God, that doesn't bode well, does it? I like the episode. Don't get me wrong. I like Matt Smith. I think Smith's at the top of his game in this. I just anything with Dougray Scott, it makes me want to punch the screen. That's the only problem I have with it. I just think how the hell he's ended up in so many big franchises is beyond me. I just don't think he's a very good actor. But that aside, I think the episode's good. As you say, the creature design is good. It produced some emotion in me. It gave us some tension. It was suitably spooky for a Doctor Who episode. I mean, it wasn't up there with kind of Blink and that kind of thing for me, but yeah, it's certainly better than a lot of Who that surrounded it. So yeah, I'll give it a soft hit. Do Grey Scott notwithstanding.
Recasting with I don't know, a more serious actor, and it could be much better for you by the sounds of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, I agree to an extent. I don't think it was the most memorable performance necessarily, but the character that he was given was quite good, in my opinion. But yeah, cool 2 hits there, Michael.
Well, I hate being negative, as you know, and I know that there are episodes that other people love that I don't, and vice versa. I know that I've got episodes that I love that other people just don't see it, and this is one that I just have tried, and I just do not see necessarily what it is that you're seeing from it, because I watched it again recently because you talk about it all the time, and I'm kind of like, I was bored for a lot of the runtime. Maybe it's because, like you said, when you know the resolution, it's kind of, you just want it waiting for them to get there.
And you were watching Grey Scott acting, mate. That's what it was.
Well, I was going to say I'm not a fan of Grey Scott either, but I also think both of the guest cast are completely unmemorable. The story itself is one of those that, 2 hours after I've watched it, I'd basically forgotten the majority of it, with the exception of the ending, which I do think is fantastic and quite subversive. But I think it's a story that for me is hanging on that ending way too much for everything that comes before it. And I wish I did feel the atmosphere and everything, but I just don't feel it. It just seems plodding and a little bit slow and dull, and yeah, it's a very throwaway episode for me with a really great ending that unfortunately is a little bit too little too late. So soft miss for me, I would say.
Okay. Once again, me and DK are pretty much on the same page, at least with our hits and misses and things like that. Very positive so far, though. And finally, I think this is going to be a similar notion. The episode of Lux from Series 15. I'm going to call it Series 15 as opposed to Series 2, Season 2.
Well done.
If we have another Series 1 with like this AMC deal, mate, sack off the show at that point. But anyway, yeah, Lux. The DK, do you want to hit us off first?
I'll let Mike go first if that's all right. I just need to look something up with regards to this.
You guys are bouncing off each other. Okay, Michael, you first.
Yeah, I don't mind going first on this one. It's another slightly weird one. I do like it. I don't like it to the level that I think the majority of the fan base do. It's hard to say that I can say that with any real certainty because I'm not as active on social media and stuff as maybe you are or some other people are. But I feel like a lot of the fan base really loved this a lot more than I did, which isn't to say I thought it was bad, but I certainly wouldn't be like it's a highlight, best in years, kind of, one of the strongest of Season 15 / Series 2, whatever you want to call it. I thought it was, just good. It's an episode that I could watch and be like, I don't know, 6 or 7 out of 10, I guess. Cool. It's, it has lots of cool things going for it. It plods along nicely. There's one really great moment with the Doctor addressing kind of racism in the era that I really like. I wish more of the episode had leaned into kind of being written a bit more like that. I like, Lux Imperator, and I think, Alan Cumming does a decent job being cartoonish, playing him. I do like the bit with the Doctor and Belinda being turned into cartoons. I think it's pretty nifty as well, but I'm not a fan of the whole meta, we're all fans watching you kind of thing, because it's just, it doesn't go anywhere. It's not related to anything, and it just reeks of RTD trying to be like, I can be clever, I can be Moffat, I can disappear up my own arse. And I just don't like it, to be honest. It ruins the immersion of the episode and the kind of the storytelling, and coupled with the fact that, Mrs. Flood can break the fourth wall for reasons that are never explained either, it just really irks me, that particular element. So for me, I'm going to say soft hit.
Soft, okay. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Moffat there, because in that scene where, they break the fourth wall, or go into the meta aspects of it, they includes music from a Stephen Moffat episode. And
Yeah.
it was like really overbearing, and I just thought, like overpowering is the word I'm looking for.
They also do that annoying thing of going, "Oh, favorite episode's Blink," which is like, it's fine, but it really, it's actual Doctor Who fans that I speak to in the wild are not as mad about Blink as everyone seems to think they bloody are. You know,
I was going to say that it seems just to be like, oh, what's the most popular Doctor Who episode? Oh, I'm going to build up IMDb to find out that kind of research. Whereas I don't know about you guys, but if I'm talking to a fan, most would say Heaven Sent. If I'm talking to a non-fan, maybe Vincent and the Doctor.
Yeah.
I would definitely give you Heaven Sent. I would also say, like we've already said a million times, World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls. Day of the Doctor, Power of the Doctor, all of these I would put above Blink, to be perfectly honest. Human Nature, Family of Blood, I'd put above Blink.
Yeah, that's a very memorable one, yeah. I'll go next just to give DK a bit more time. Lux is one I thought was very good at the time of broadcast. I haven't really went back to rewatch it, admittedly, but what I can say is I thought the animation, the Lux itself was fantastic. It does speak about racism a little bit, which I think is really effective for the most part. The mother, who is only the racist one, is made into such like a very unlikable character. I think the meta stuff is contextually earned in terms of the script. It's not like out of nowhere. It's interesting. I think Shuey Gat was good, and ironically, it feels like an episode with a diminished budget, where it's like primarily set in one theater and not much else. It kind of feels like a filler episode in there, not necessarily to do with the script, but more from like a production aspect. But yeah, I thought they used the space really well, and the camera quality and things like that are obscenely good. So it's not really skimped out on that kind of thing. But yeah, I do really like this one. Again, there are some issues like that scene with the overpowering music. Everyone's favorite episode being Blink. It's a very good episode, Blink, but it's not the best. Come on. Yeah, so I would say similar to you, 6 or 7, maybe an 8 pushing it. Yeah, soft hit for me. And I'll pass over to DK.
Okay. I'm sure you told me, Mike, that you preferred Fear Her over Blink.
Am I?
Anyway. No, I'm just
Mike,
thinking.
I really don't think I have.
If that's the truth, then you've got to wrap this podcast up. You do not believe in the podcast.
Was that the day when I fell on the knitting needle and it went straight to my brain and lobotomized me? What the fuck?
Anyway, enough shade at you. I like it. I don't love it. I think I'm going to agree with you guys that it's like a 6 or 7 out of 10. I think from what was promised, I don't know if people's expectations were too high. Because whenever anybody says it's going to be a live action cartoon kind of combo, you immediately go to things like Roger Rabbit and stuff like that. And obviously the budget on Doctor Who is nowhere near something like that. So while I like Cummings' performance, there was just something missing about it. I didn't mind the meta aspect. It didn't really get to me. The Blink thing was, obviously groan-inducing. I like Linus Roach. Always like Linus Roach. I don't think Verada's ever looked better than she does in this episode. Sorry.
Oh, that dress is amazing.
Bitch. But yeah, to me, it wrapped up far too quickly. I was a bit, I don't know. By the time the episode finished, I was a bit kind of, was that it?
Yeah, I don't love that logic either, that it's like, it's a being made of light, so we destroyed him with light. Hey, you're made of water and you can drown. Like, okay, hang on. It's a bit of a false equivalency, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it just, I don't know. The hype that the episode received, and I was starting to buy into it, and then it just kind of fizzled a little for me, and I think that's the reason why I don't rate it higher. Yeah, I'm gonna say soft hit.
3 soft hits. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I
we
do.
all said the same thing.
I do think with that one particularly, like you said earlier, it's a case of it's stronger because of the episodes it's around, in my opinion. because you've got Robot Revolution, and then I think what's the next one? It's
The Well is afterwards, and come on, that's amazing.
Well, The Well is amazing. However, it comes straight after the Robot Revolution, which itself is a decent episode, but it doesn't take much to be better than that. So the fact that Deluxe was, again, probably fed into the hype of that being a really good story, and it is a good story, but. Yeah, it's not the best, and The Well exceeds that in the very next episode. But yeah,
not sure I follow your logic, or The Devil's Code would be the best episode of all time since it follows Space Babies.
No.
I actually like The Devil's Code, apart from that last cruddy bit.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree. The Devil's Code is like a 6 out of 10 in my opinion. It's very similar levels to this one.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the hit or miss section done, I believe. So passing over to Mike again.
Yeah, well, I'll take the baton back. We were all ultimately positive, even with my disagreement on one of them. It came out as 4 hits again. So, we are good fans. It turns out.
Inside to that, I'll try to pick more difficult ones.
I prefer it when, there's a little bit of dissent, a little bit of discussion, but ultimately we're all positive. It's nice to know, like I said, that as fans, we're not always just like shitting on everything about the show. So, it's good to see. And we're going to move on now to the main focus of this episode. As I said, this is the next part of our Cyberman series, guest starring the Daleks in this instance. We're looking at the episodes Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. In the episode Army of Ghosts, the Cybermen come to Earth from a parallel world by following a spherical ship through an interdimensional breach. The Torchwood Institute intends to open this breach further for use as an energy source. In Doomsday, it marks the first conflict between the Daleks and the Cybermen in Doctor Who's then 43-year history. The concept of the two species appearing on screen together was first proposed in 1967, but was vetoed by Terry Nation, the creator of the Daleks. The episode also features Billie Piper's last appearance in the lead companion role as Rose Tyler, the final regular appearance of Noel Clarke as Rose's ex-boyfriend and previous companion Mickey, and the first appearance of Catherine Tate as Donna Noble, the companion in the following episode, the 4th series, and the 60th anniversary specials. And the only thing I have to note out of all of that information is that I think I was watching the behind-the-scenes thing, and David Tennant says that your average person always thinks that the Daleks and the Cybermen have faced off, or at least have shared the screen together, and it is weird to think that until this point they never had. The closest you got, I think, was the Five Doctors features both of them, but it has one Dalek in one scene, and then the Cybermen later on, they never interact or anything. So it is a bizarre thought. Did you guys... did you always just assume that there'd been an episode somewhere, or did you know this was like historical? Will, I'll ask you.
Yeah, this was the first time. Of course, you have that moment in the Five Doctors where, again, the Cybermen are so easily defeated by the Raspberry Robot, I believe it is. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you expect them to share this because they've been so, ever present in the show. But yeah, it just made it way more rewarding and, menacing, that scene where they finally engage. It's like, oh shit, this is it. What are they going to say?
Cool. And what about you, DK? You're a huge, wilderness years type nerd and everything. So
I thought you were going to say, you're a huge fucking nerd. Yeah, in fact, I can't recall it ever happening in the wilderness years either. Pretty much simply because when it came to the novels, they weren't really allowed to use the Daleks. So, yeah, they had to get strange ways around using the Daleks. Like the Doctor pops over a hill, you hear lots of large explosions, and a big chunk of polycarbide armor comes flying over, and that's about it. Yeah, I knew there wasn't a meeting as such before. I'm kind of glad that there hasn't been, because I think once you start getting into, and I am certainly glad that they didn't go down the Godzilla and Kong route in having them regularly face off against each other. I think that I don't know.
There's been a fair bit of since then. There's been at least a few times. So yeah.
Why? When?
Oh well, off the top of my head, Time of the Doctor, Power of the Doctor. There's a few.
I honestly can't remember.
They don't really engage in Time of the Doctor, to be fair.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. They probably don't engage each other, but they are both in it. But yeah, in Power of the Doctor, they definitely... Well, they were kind of working together, I guess. Okay, they don't fight, I guess. Fair enough. That's your point then.
And then in, the Pandora Opens, they've got the Alliance as well. After this episode, they just fucking love each other.
Yeah, well, they're always appearing together, yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm just glad it didn't become like a regular plot line, if you know what I mean.
Having them fight, like, oh no, it's these two again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move to what we always do now. Then we're going to start with our behind-the-scenes section. Without any further ado, we're going to activate the time-space visualizer. And it's over to you, DK, to handle the behind-the-scenes for this one. So I'm crossing to you.
No worries. Yep, the majority of these episodes take place in the Torchwood Institute, which is seen on screen for the first time. The phrase Torchwood originated from an anagram of Doctor Who, which was used to conceal the Russia's tapes during the filming of the first series. It was an art word used throughout the majority of the second series, starting with the Series 1 episode Bad Wolf. The episode's secondary plot device is the Cybermen from the parallel universe featured in Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel. And if you want to see our previous review, it's still available. The Cybermen breaking through plastic sheets is a recurring theme throughout Cybermen appearances, in particular the Tomb of the Cybermen from 1967 and 1982's Earthshock. We've also got reviews of those as well, because we are whores. The concept of a Cyber King, mentioned by Mickey, would eventually come to pass in the next Doctor, 2008. And a review of that is coming at the end of the year, obviously, the aforementioned whores comment. The first episode is also the first in which Freema Agyeman appears, although she's not playing the role of Martha Jones, which she would play in Series 3, but a minor character named Adiola, who is later revealed to be Martha's cousin in a Dallas style twist. Russell T Davies admired Agyeman's performance as Adiola and called her back to fill the role of companion that Piper had chosen to leave. Now, to ensure that Noel Clarke and Sean Dingwall, Mickey Smith and Pete Tile, respectively, were available for filming, the story was filmed in the season's third production block, along with Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel. The episode also features references to other programs by the BBC. The most notable of these is the cameo of Barbara Windsor as Peggy Mitchell in EastEnders, where she bars a ghost who she presumes to be Den Watts from the Queen Vic pub. Other British TV personalities appearing in the episode are Trisha Goddard, Alistair Appleton and Derek Ackera, appearing as themselves. Additionally, the shot of 1 Canada Square is taken from the opening credits of The Apprentice, a programme with the same name as a controversial broadcast in 1992 by the BBC. Ghostwatch also appears in the show. Now, to keep the appearance of the Daleks secret, the final scene of Army of Ghosts was removed from all preview tapes and replaced with a title card reading, "Final scene withheld until transmission," including the copy given to the Doctor Who microsite's Fear Forecast team. This proved to be futile, however, as the Black Dalek model used for filming made an appearance at the BAFTA Awards several months before the episode aired. Since no such Dalek had been seen in Series 1, attentive viewers thus became aware that an appearance of the Daleks was on the cards and upcoming. Whoops.
Yeah, I remember that, actually, the spoilerific BAFTA's appearance.
Yeah.
They must have been really pissed off about that. They've done so much to keep the Dalek secret, and then...
The next trailer for Doomsday, after Army of Ghosts, you have the extermination... No, I think it's of Fear Her. The episode before Army of Ghosts. In the next time trailer for that, you've got an extermination effect that's seen in Doomsday. Which is really bizarre because it kind of just spoils the reveal of the Daleks in the prior episode. So even without the BAFTA thing, you would have seen the extermination effect and pieced 1 and 2 together, you know?
Yeah, well, fair enough. So, I mean, there's not really a lot else that we can add to that other than to dive in and start talking about the individual sections, as it were. So, we're going to analyze the individual elements, like I said, and we're going to start with writing because it's the first thing I've got down, so why not? And I have a couple of little things to obviously mention, the behind the scenes-ish related to this. The episode was obviously written by Russell T Davies, the executive sort of showrunner of the show. An item of discussion between the production staff was over who would rescue Rose. Davies and Julie Gardner wanted Pete to rescue her, while Noel Clarke and Phil Collinson wanted Mickey. The role was ultimately given to Pete to emphasise that he had accepted Rose as a surrogate daughter. We did mention this in our Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel review. It very much feels like they're setting this up when Pete's like, "You're not my daughter," and leaves in a huff at the end of the Age of Steel. So I feel like you kind of have to watch these episodes together to get that through line for the character. The Doctor's intended reply to Rose was also discussed. Davies, who left the reply unspecified, said that he didn't know when asked by Collinson on the episode's commentary track, whereas Gardner vehemently believed the Doctor was going to reciprocate Rose's love. And, some elements of the story were inspired by Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy. I won't get too much into that because Will hasn't read those books. I might want to someday, so I don't want to spoil them. Philip Pullman was flattered by the references in the episode and compared Davies' actions to his own practice of referencing works. So, yeah.
Have you not seen the TV show then, Will?
No, I haven't. I've got a lot of TV to catch up with.
Oh, you're in for a treat when you watch that. Seriously.
Yeah. It's been high on my watch list for years, but I'd rather just watch Doctor Who for 30th time for some reason.
It's what we do. It's what we do. So, I'm going to kind of open the floor and say that, is there anything there that you guys wanted to mention or bring up? And what would we like to start talking about first with the writing? And Will, this was your call this episode, or these episodes, so what did you want to bring up first and discuss?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, this is, a two-parter that I haven't watched for, quite a long time. So we've alluded to it already. Speak about how the Cybermen and the Daleks are treated in the script, or are we going episode by episode? So are we go to Doomsday? Or
we'll deal with the whole thing because it would tend to. I mean, when we're doing two-parters, we tend to just regard it as one long 90-minute episode, really.
Yeah. So. How about we speak about the villains first?
Yeah, if you like. Yeah. So Daleks and Cybermen, and to a lesser extent, I suppose, Torchwood. Yvonne Hartman, etc. Watching it this time around, it's really horribly prescient exactly what kind of person Yvonne is. When you have her saying things like, we're here for the British Empire, we want to defend our borders. Yikes, we're using the imperial, not the metric system. If it's alien, it's ours, it's on our land. We want this independent power source so that we're not reliant on the Middle East. I'm kind of like, she's Nigel Farage in a skirt. It's disturbing.
I just say that. Oh, I just always assumed it would be to do with the growing, alien invasions on Earth, as opposed to just like it being subtext about foreigners.
You can maybe read it that way, but I have to say there was an interview with Tracy Ann Cyberman, as I like to call her, on the behind the scenes, because I did all of my due diligence for this, and I watched the Doctor Who confidentials and everything as well. And I have to say that she agrees with me on the behind the scenes. She's like, she's a pseudo-fascist. I'm like, I wouldn't even add the pseudo. I would say she's just a fascist. Frankly,
I know, but again, I'm being a basic bitch, and it's like, step on me, mommy.
Oh, I can't stand her. I'm sorry. I just, nope. Not a fan of her as an actress or a person, I'm afraid, but that's a different matter. Again, we're not trying to be cancelled.
King of country. Okay, Cybermen and Daleks, because that is ultimately the meat, the hook of this episode, other than Billy Piper's ultimate exit. So, I'll lead us into this. I'll just say I felt like the Cybermen towards the end were done an absolute disservice, and I think it was very apt. It summed it up very well, when Rose ultimately does, get flung into the void. During those scenes, you only get the VFX shots of the Daleks being sucked in. They completely forget.
You do see the Cybermen getting sucked, but they're not. It's because they're not sucked through the same place that the void sphere came from. So you see them just getting kind of phased back to their reality. They don't go flying through Torchwood Tower.
They're supposed to go into the void. They're not going back.
But they are. It's just that their method of coming out of the void isn't the same. It's not through Torchwood's kind of thing. So they just phase the same way the ghosts all phased into existence in the spots they were in. They phased back out of existence in the same way.
Oh, but I thought it was to do with the cracks, because if you think about it, the Daleks didn't come through that, did they? Like the Cybermen came through the same hypothetical thing. No.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, but it's claimed that the void sphere is the thing that opened ultimately the big sort of gaping hole in the universe that they're getting sucked through. So that's why the Daleks in particular are being sucked through that way. But there is a scene that shows you the Cybermen getting sucked off, as it were.
That's just in the sky, unfortunately. And then you get like a cutaway to the Torchwood Tower where it's just the Daleks. It's like, where the hell did the Cybermen go?
Because they phased away. That's the thing. It looks like they're being sucked up, but they phase away, because I've always read that as like, well, they're just going back to Pizza World or whatever.
By that point, I just also don't think with the resolution make a whole deal of sense, because obviously, Rose is trying to get the lever back up. And then she gets the lever back up, a few more Daleks go in. And then suddenly, when she's like in peril and she's likely to fall into the void, instead of the Doctor closing the breach, because the Daleks have stopped being sucked into it. Because how was the breach going to close anyway? Because the Daleks had stopped flying into it. Give it another 20 seconds of Rose struggling, and there's still no Daleks going in. The second she gets zapped by Pete, the breach closes. Why didn't it close 20 seconds ago when the Daleks had stopped going into it, But it's not a nitpick. It's like, why did the breach not close when the
That's
Daleks...
just TV logic. It's always this. You kind of have to just hand wave that away as it's TV. Sort of whatever.
When that happens, it kind of feels like the shift, quite rightly, to an extent, goes towards, Rose Tyler's exit. However... This is a moment where you've got the two biggest villains in the show's history firing it off, and then you're dedicating about 20 minutes of the end of the episode towards the companion. And I've seen this some online a fair bit, especially towards, back in the day, a few years ago when this, was airing. And people were saying that compared to Classic Who, Modern Who does focus on the companions too much. Whereas, if you think back to Classic Who, I'm thinking about companion exits like fucking Dodo, where she leaves off screen.
I was going to say, I would counter-argue that the Classic era doesn't focus on them enough.
No, I do agree. And of course, with how television has evolved, you have to have, strong main characters, and that includes the companions. It's not just the Doctor in Doctor Who, it's the companions as well. But I just feel like when you have this battle... and you've got a 45-minute episode and you dedicate the last 15, 20 minutes to the companion, it's kind of sad that you only really dedicate 25 minutes to the Cybermen and the Dalek, and beyond one verbal spat, which is brilliant, you just have a few battle scenes, which is very generic. And actually, the best scene with the battle scenes, in my opinion, comes on the bridge with the practical effects of the explosions, things like that. And that's not even with the Daleks, that's the Cybermen and the humans.
Yes.
So it's kind of disappointing that outside of the spat, what is more fascinating to me is the human aspects, because this is one last thing before I pass it on. It's the, the Doctor surrendering upon to the Cybermen, a very good idea with the guns that he had adapted to, be effective on the Daleks. Whereas during the actual battle scene where they infiltrate the Daleks base, where they're set up down where the sphere is, the Cyberman shoots the Dalek, but only all 4 Daleks survive the assault, even though the gun is supposed to be, able to destroy a Dalek's skin.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. To be honest, I think the most effective stuff is, like you said, when it's showing the Cyberman invasion and that aspect, like you said, they're in people's homes and they're not ghosts, they're metal men. And yeah, I would have liked to see more of that, but I'm also very consciously aware of the budget they've got. You're never going to see a huge cosmic, interstellar war between millions of, cyborgs and robots or whatever you want to call them. So I think what we got was good, and I think Graeme Harper does a good job of selling that sense of scale by showing us scenes like that battle on the bridge with the Cybermen facing the humans. And yeah, I mean, it's the Daleks. They were always going to get foregrounded, I guess, when they come in, because that's why they're the big cliffhanger. It's kind of cheering, yeah, the Daleks are back kind of thing, and we would even destroy you with one Dalek kind of thing. They're just that cocky, and they are kind of portrayed that way a lot of the time until it's, convenient to defeat them, which, that's a fault of Russell T Davies writing and a few other people, but that's something you just get used to after a while. But it also feeds into something that I was saying to you off air, Will, which is I think Russell T Davies sometimes doesn't realize that he's just being ridiculous when it comes to the scale of things. Like, he writes these things and just thinks it'll be fine. Like, I remember when I watched the episode this time and it's like, oh, the Genesis Ark is opened. How many Daleks are in there? Millions. I'm like, that's inconceivable. There doesn't need to be millions. If one is a threat, now you've said millions of them. And it's like, if there really were millions of them, then it would have taken about fucking 3 hours for them all to get sucked back into the void at the end as well. You don't have to say millions just because it sounds like a cool word. You could have said, I don't know, a few thousand, maybe, whatever. But it's just ludicrous, and it's just RTD going, yeah, I'll make it as big as possible, even though it's just, I'm saying it and not showing it kind of thing.
I was going to say, and it kind of just repeats the beat of the Pawing of the Ways when, you see the reveal of the Dalek ships. Like, yes, we've already had that, and, they survived the Time War, amazing. That's, like, scary, intimidating, but to do that 2 finales in a row is kind of like, pick a new niche, mate.
Yeah, I guess, but I will say I think this is This is the least egregious of RTD's Deus Ex Machina endings, because at least this one I think has logic and sense to it. The idea that they're, coated in stuff in the void and they can all be sucked back in there, I'm like, I can buy this. Yes, it is a kind of a cheat in the same kind of way, but it's a cheat that makes sense and that you've built up in the story, as opposed to, as DK was alluding to earlier, like, oh, Donna's just pressed a few buttons and the Daleks have all blown up because she's just amazing now. Like, what? Eh? So I'd rather this than something along those lines,
I was going to say, this kind of, I know the Dr. Donna was kind of a thing that was fed in, woven into the entire series. However, at least with this two-parter, you had, the glasses, the 3D glasses that were like the void stuff, as they put it in the episodes. So they kind of set that up, and finally, when he explains why the fuck he's got like these 3D glasses throughout the episode.
Yeah. I did like that, actually, because I thought it was just him being kooky and being doctorish, as you say. So then when it turned out there was a point in Doomsday where it's like, no, I'm seeing the void stuff on you. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. There was a reason for it. I'll let you off.
Yeah. But then equally, it's like, why did he have to confirm with, like, Jake, for example? Like, he chucked it on when Jake came for the rift. So it's like, surely you know the point of these glasses if you've got them on in the first place. Why do you have to...
seen if Jake was coated in void stuff, I guess.
He knows he would be. I don't know. I love Jake.
Why not confirm it? Yeah.
That'll come up in another section of acting or performances or something. But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I get you. Yeah, what was I going to say? I think I haven't really got much else to add about the Daleks and Cybermen thing, other than, like you and like I think everybody else, I love the smack talk. I love that it's basically, boxing promotion between Daleks and Cybermen. They're just dissing each other. I love it. Can't get enough of that. And there's a little bit of a fight there and a little bit of a battle. But as you said, the Cyberman stuff I think is very effective, even when it comes to them. It's being done to death in the classic series, but them abducting people through the plastic sheets and then taking them over with those little ear pod things. I'm talking of Adiola and her boyfriend kind of thing. And then even when Yvonne's being marched in and she's like, oh, God. And as you said, you can kind of hear the metal whirring and the skull cracking and stuff. That's all pretty effective. But I mean, having said that, I also really do like the fact that there's a clever reason why the Daleks don't just immediately kill everyone in the room when they emerge, because that always bugs me. And yet I quite like, as I said, I think RTD is quite clever here by having Rose shout, Daleks, how would I know that name? You're going to have to keep me alive to find out. And then they're like, actually, we do need you alive because we need you to open the Ark anyway, so fine. So I'm like, okay, at least there's a reason as opposed to just, we would kill you, but you've got plot armor. So anyway, that's enough from me. DK, you haven't had a chance to really chime in with your thoughts on the Dalek Cybermen of it all. So what do you think?
It's going into something like this, it's never going to live up to your expectations. When you've got someone like RTD who, as you said earlier, who thinks, bigger is better all the time, it makes it considerably worse. The fact that it was as restrained as it was, and that's saying something, helped. I did like the battle where they're trying to get the Genesis Ark out there, but as you say, it's it's more human based than anything, because I think when you have two sets of villains that you're not really rooting for either, it's a kind of AVP kind of situation. You need some humans in there as kind of context / cannon fodder to show the scale of things. I think it works considerably better in the confines of the Torchwood Institute than it does once it spills out onto the streets, because I think that's when the budget limitations really start showing things up for what they are. It essentially comes down to three scenes for me. One is the one where they're trying to prime the Genesis Ark and get it outside. The second one is where the Doctor surrenders and the Cybermen come in with the guns blazing and all that kind of thing. And the first one, as you've mentioned, is the smack talk. And I think when it comes down to it, when most people remember this story, it's the smack talk that they remember. And I think it's almost sad that after all of this time and finally getting the Cybermen and Dalek on screen together, the most memorable scene is something that would have Vic and Bob with the handbags.
DK, can you hear me, mate?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Yeah.
jump in and hope Mike comes back. I do agree with you, and the thing is, I'd argue, have you ever seen the video on YouTube where like a voiceover artist is dubbed over the scene and like extended it and has done its own dialogue for it? Because there's a bit where it's like, you are wearing flares, you can defeat the world with disco fever, and it's like it just adds on to the episode. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen that, no, but now I want to go and look it up.
It's hilarious. Go watch it before Mike gets in. It's only like 2-3 minutes. It's fantastic.
It does get you some pretty. I mean, it's not really funny, but I do love the line when Rose, they identify the Doctor and the Daleks kind of wince almost, like back off a little bit, and Rose is like, "Oh yeah, 5 million Cybermen, easy. One Doctor, now you're scared." Like, yeah.
Well, funny enough, I do like, conversely, I like how David Tennant, I know this is veering into like performance now, but I do like how it kind of veered into the Daleks being scared. So you have the Doctor's reaction when, the connection, the visual link is established and the Dalek comes around the corner and the Doctor like instantly, gets off his laurels, stands up and it's like, crap, the Daleks are back. Because then that kind of feeds into later in the episode when they go over to Pete's world. He's like, oh, you reckon I can, defeat both the Daleks and the Cybermen? And I feel like that was a very, classic Who-centered kind of, mentality.
Yeah, it's a really nice moment when he's like, what is it? You really think I can deal with millions of Cybermen and the Daleks? Yeah, I do. Maybe that's all I need. Just,
Absolutely. Like, that's, to me, that was very classic Who, which I do appreciate. Very Tom Baker-esque, in my opinion. But, I just think, the fact that they were both scared of each other, and then you've got also the Doctor confused about, Time Lord science and all of that. I do like how it got everybody on edge, and Time Lord science being bigger on the inside, with the Genesis Ark, I thought was, quite genius, in my opinion.
I agree. I think all of the sci-fi elements are. I think the idea that it was the void ship breaking through that caused the bleeding through of the Cybermen from Pete's world is a really clever way of doing that when you've kind of established previously that it can't really happen. So you've tied that in and you've, fed the Dalek storyline into the Cybermen in a really interesting way that way.
If we completely go away from the Cybermen and Daleks, one of my favorite moments that was building for at least the series 2, in my opinion, was Jackie finally having some luck with men. In that scene where she reunites with Pete, not her P necessarily, but a P that becomes her P.
I'm torn on that scene.
Especially Love and Monsters. Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, I'm just saying I'm torn on that scene because I really do think it's funny and I like the kind of humor you get of Jackie. Like, I don't care about that. How rich? Oh, I don't care. How very? But Pete kind of forgets his own wife and dives into snogging her way too conveniently, and it does feel like the episode's like, we need to get these pieces over on Pete's world, and we're going to focus more on worrying about Rose and her ending up there so that these guys just quickly get together and it's fine. It's over with.
Yeah, no, I do see that, but I also think you overestimate humans' ability to not, just go back to the, ex-wives and things like that, because, I fear I would fold that quickly as well,
Fair enough. I mean, it's a small thing. It doesn't really bother me hugely. It just felt like, okay, it's a bit too quick, and I get it. You've got too much else to do with the episode, so all right.
Yeah. Do you care?
It's such a minor moment. It doesn't really.
And that Canary Wharf thing is hilarious.
It's good, isn't it?
I was trying to stifle my laughter while you were talking because I didn't want to get it on the recording.
No, you've heard Goldmine now because that guy's videos are absolutely hilarious. He does so many episodes.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's my night sorted.
What did you think about the reunion between Jackie and Pete?
I actually liked it. It made sense to me. I do think that the line, you're not her though. They could have maybe done without that because he flip flops too much to me.
That's what I said.
But I can buy it because from what I understand, from what I remember, and my memory is vague, the Jackie Tyler on Pete's World, we should call it that, wasn't that.
She was a bitch.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. So I can understand why Pete would instantly go for the Jackie of this world when Jackie's saying, I don't care about that because, to Pete's thinking, oh, I've got Jackie, but she's not an asswipe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look at her and be like, wow, you look exactly like the woman I'm incredibly attracted to, but it turns out you're not a bitch.
Exactly. And, I can see why that would work. So...
Fair enough. Yeah, cool. Well, I have a couple of things I wanted to mention again about the writing then before we move to the next section. And the first one is Torchwood, which, again, I've kind of touched on a little bit off air with you, Will, which is... I didn't think I had a problem with it until watching it again now, and then it just becomes incredibly, again, RTD hand-wavy. And again, maybe it's because he's done it again since with stupid crap like Sutek, but it just defies belief that Torchwood would have, been founded in the 1800s, existed for all this time, and yet never encountered the Doctor, particularly when there was a point when he was stuck on Earth working for the government. How hard is it to find him in that?
Has UNIT never heard of Torchwood?
Well, that's the thing. RTD is somebody does mention this to him on the behind the scenes, and he goes, "Well, the FBI and CIA don't always communicate with each other." I'm like, "Yeah, but the CIA don't hire the FBI's most wanted."
Well, it's not just that. I mean, they do know of each other's existence.
Exactly. I mean, it seems like it could and probably should have just been UNIT. There's the only reason to have invented Torchwood is because you wanted the spin-off, which now is glaringly obvious, unfortunately.
I just think the whole setup of Torchwood is just. In this, anyway, is bad. I presume it's been salvaged somewhat in Big Finish because I know that she's done some audios for Big Finish.
Everybody has.
Yeah, I can only hope it salvaged it because, and the whole, I'm the Doctor. Oh, I should say, round of applause. That just makes me angry.
I take it I'm a prisoner. Well, yeah, of course you are, but don't worry. Like what?
I do like the way she turns from hot to cold. Yeah. I do like that, and that's not a sexual thing. Don't start. I do like the way she I assume I'm a prisoner. Oh yeah, and it's just I like that. Think again, kind of thing. But I just think the entire setup. It just seems to be a building. Yeah, and it's headed up by the most incompetent of people, full of experts in their field. And you put this person in charge that is pretty crap, and she's more concerned with the gossip about who's shagging who in the office.
But also, I have to say, it is in context. It also becomes way more egregious when you're like, we are a top secret government organization that is dedicated to not letting people know we exist, but secretly studying alien invasions, and you just feel like another one.
Yeah. Oh, by the way,
got unit and
countermeasures. That was us.
I know, but the thing is, they're in actual Torture, because you mentioned about Big Finish, but I do think for all of his flaws, Christian does save it a bit in Series 2 of Torchwood. He does give, I think it's in Exit Wounds, or no, not Exit Wounds, Fragments. It gives a bit more context to the creation of Torchwood. But then that's where it gets really convoluted as well, especially with the Series 3 finale, which is, in my opinion, way more egregious with how it handles Torchwood. Yeah. Because it seems like you've got Russell T Davies' vision of Torchwood, and then you've got Chris Chibnall's. And like I said, for all of his flaws, Chris Chibnall did a great job in Series 2 of Torchwood in establishing it, in like trying to make it make sense. But then Russell just like insists on like crapping his work in the Series 3 two-part. But like you said, the base foundation of Torchwood in this, and the Runaway Bride as well, is weak as hell compared to the actual show. So it does salvage it in Series 2 of Torch. But yeah.
I also don't like the fact, I know it's not inherent to this story itself, but I would have been much happier had you had Victoria say, oh, we'll call it the Torchwood Institute or something, and then go straight to the Torchwood Institute at the end in this story. It didn't need your bad wolf dropping hints all the way through, because to me that just made it look cheap, especially when you get to things like, Satan Pit and stuff like that, and they're referring to the Torchwood archives, and you just think, oh, bugger off with your crammed references. I hate that.
To be fair, they have also done that on Big Finish because they hired the guy who plays Zachary Crossflame for one of the Torchwood audios.
Oh, God.
But the other thing he does, which comes up in this episode, is the freaking god-awful, stupid celebrity cameos that he chucks in every one of his finales.
Oh, yeah.
It's not necessary, and it has dated this episode horribly.
It was the EastEnders one that did it for me. It just went on way too long. If you'd have left it at that, if you'd have left it to get out of my pub, but then no, she had to go into the only spirits we serve here are, and you just say, no, just that's like airtime.
Again, it's RTD trying to be funny, but
yeah,
even disregarding that, and you know the fact that it's a fictional freaking program, so how exactly you're getting the ghost to interact, I don't know. That's a whole other issue. But it's like the other sort of celebrity cameos. Who on earth watching this now is going to know who the heck Derek Acora or Trisha Goddard even are?
I'm going to say Trisha's not been on TV for God knows how long.
Probably about 20 years.
Well, you know, it's. I'll be fair. At least it's held up better than Hugh Edwards.
I was about to say fair.
Or as it turns out, Sharon Osbourne these days.
Oh, God.
I mean, you still got Noel Clarke in this one and much series 2.
Yes.
But we won't get into that.
Anyway, the last couple of things. First of all, I wanted to mention, because it kind of relates to what you were saying, I'm very mixed when it comes to the characterization of the Doctor in this episode, which I'm bringing up in writing, and rather than acting or whatever, because there are times that, like you said, Russell T Davies just writes the 10th Doctor like fully panto. I really don't like the whole, who are you going to call? Walking around like a Ghostbuster or...
I ain't afraid of no ghost.
All of that stuff and all of the... she looked into the time vortex and aged several years. It's
don't mind that. I don't mind that bit. The Ghostbusters bit's a bit...
I hated all of that, and I could have done without it, and yeah, there's just too many...
I don't like the... Nah, let's make it bigger.
Make it bigger. I mean, but then you counter that with there's some really fantastic Doctor moments in here, like we've already mentioned about, maybe if you have hope, that's all I need, or the stuff at the end is really good, or I really like this.
I love that, we could, I like that, Via the Void. That's the essential Doctor. It's some of it, tonally, it's kind of all over the place, the story. And I think that's the problem I have looking back at it. I mean, it's got that bittersweet kind of ending, but then some of the elements leading up to that aren't just done for comedy effect. It's like full-on parody. It's really weird.
It's weird watching back now how much Russell T Davies does kind of lean into the camp. No offense intended. It's watching at the time. I don't think we realized quite how bad it does lean into that at times, but
and so all these people that are complaining that when RTD came back and saying, "Oh, this isn't like he was before." Looking back, you kind of think it kind of is like he was before. We were just, kind of grateful that we were getting Doctor Who at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, I mean, like I said, there is some great Doctor moments, though. I loved all the stuff with him, using the shattered glass as a metaphor, and the way that everyone's like, "Oh, did it take you like to make a mess?" Because, and I really love. It's not my favorite line, so I'll mention it here instead of there. But I love the moment when the Cybermen are like, you are proof that emotions are a weakness, and he's like, maybe. But I am fond of some emotions, like hope. Hope is a good emotion, and then Jake comes through from the other world. It's like, yay!
I like the speech, but it just doesn't match up because he's looking over the Cyberman's shoulder as if Jake's already arrived, or as if he can sense that Jake's coming. And I think in order to wave that away, your own headcanon has to say, yeah, maybe he sensed Jake's on his way, because otherwise he's.
I just figured it was a visual effect that was in. Like I forgive them for stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's a blink of an eye. But the only other one that I wanted to mention,
the sound effects like roaring up as well of the effect, off screen. So there is something there. But I'll just interject. I know it's more of a performance thing, but I do think David Tennant was superb in this episode. There were, there were multiple moments, like from the moment where he was Jackie thinking her father had returned, like going up to the kitchen door. I think that was an excellent performance from him. Like even in scenes that wasn't about him. Then, of course, like I mentioned, when the Daleks first appeared, his reaction to that, and then also when Pete kind of shut him up when he was in Pete's world and said, "You're going to listen for once." I loved David's reaction to that. And the thing is, with Series 2. I found like the scripts and the production and David especially were still finding their feet with the show, kind of, because I did find, especially with the weaker scripts like Fear Her, not necessarily Fear Her, what should I say? Love of Monsters in his cameo in that, and especially the Idiot's Lantern, he does overact a lot. However, in this episode, he is very subdued. He has his moments where he can flip the switch, like you said, and like via the void and things like that. I can see that's why. And like moments Leo like that, it's like that's his charisma that you see come through more in Series 3, especially like Smith and Jones when he's on the moon, barefoot on the moon. Yeah. Moments like that where you see his Doctor forming but not fully there yet with his performance as well. And that's when you get, you know, his overacting, like episodes like Waters of Mars, where it actually warrants it. Whereas in Series 2, he just does it because it's a bad script and he's just trying to compensate, perhaps. But in this episode, he gives everyone their dues. He flips from the serious to the, you know, the flamboyant very quickly, you know, the camp. And I think he does nail it superbly throughout in those moments I mentioned. But as for the rating, yeah, I mean, I think there are some really good one-liners, like I mentioned earlier. I surrender upon to you a very good idea. I think that's a really good line, even if it sounds a bit simple, but the Cyberman asked him to surrender, so I think it's a nice comeback. And also him being angry with Rose towards the end when she comes back. Again, that's a bit of flip-flopping as well, because one moment he's like, oh, I'm really pissed off with you for abandoning your mother and your family to come back to be with me. And then 2 minutes later, he's happy that, you know, she's back and making, you know, references about them being a great duo, you know. But I think Davies works excellently here, and it's one of his best performances in the series. Whether that's to do with the script or his performance, who knows?
I think it's mostly his performance, to be fair.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I've already said I kind of feel like it's a mixed bag, but since we've moved on to the acting, we will move on to it. And as we're talking about the other sections, we'll talk about the obvious, you know, elephant in the room, the big kind of farewell scene as we're going. So we've talked about David, you know, what we liked and didn't like in terms of Tennant's performance. Briefly, I will say I agree with Russell T Davies that I think Freema Agyeman's really good in a very small role. I can see why he says if he'd seen her beforehand, he wouldn't have had her killed off and just had Adiola be the next companion. I think Camille Kaduri is underrated all the time in the show, and especially here. Particularly, I'm thinking of the scene in the TARDIS where she's saying to Rose, you know, years from now, there's a strange girl walking in a marketplace, and she's not Rose Tyler. She's not even human. It's like really quite powerful and deep, and it's good when you give her that stuff to do instead of the knockabout comedy type crap all the time, you know. I've already mentioned, I think Tracy Ann Oberman thinks that she's starring on CBBC, not a great actress, but I think Billy is the kind of... Sorry, what?
It's such a mixed bag all the way through, and I think that's my problem with this story. That you have some really brilliantly written moments, like the void ship coming through, and you know the cracks in the glass, and that scene with Jackie saying about, you know, Rose, and that she's even starting to look like the Doctor. There's some brilliantly written bits in this.
Yeah.
But then you also have other things that are just so fucking cringe, and I just wish someone could edit out all the cringe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of a mixed bag, but I think the most consistent one throughout is Billy, who I think is absolutely heartbreaking at the end. I will say, and I probably should have mentioned this during writing, I really resent the stupid fake-out voiceover. This is the day I died. You're not fooling anybody, RTD. And it just comes off as so cheap and shitty, especially watching it back now, when you're like, why would you frame it like that? It's so cheap.
I know, because for me personally, those scenes I contextualize as, you know, she's gone back to Bad Wolf Bay a few years after to, you know, look at the bay because she's wearing a completely different outfit. So to reflect on the moments in the time with the Doctor that she had. And then it could be like a reference to her, you know, losing a significant part of her.
You still wouldn't really put it like that, would you?
I guess it's supposed to be the hook. Oh, like, how is she going to die? But when you think about that, you know, those scenes where she's just on the beach is probably a contemplative thing. Then I guess you can kind of brush it off as that as well. With how she describes
it. If it had been, you know, this is the story of how my life changed, or this is the story of how everything came crashing down, or whatever, fair enough. But it just feels like I said it's such a cheap thing, and they've been doing it since Impossible Planet with the whole the alien child who will die in battle, and the only explanation we get is the Doctor going, "Oh, you're officially listed amongst the dead." So, oh yeah, I guess I technically did die. Shut up. So yeah, that's. I mean, like I said, but Billy is so good in this, especially at those end scenes. She breaks your heart, and yeah, that's my thoughts on all of the acting. So over to you, Will. What do you make of the acting throughout this?
No, I do agree with Camille specifically. I mentioned earlier with like Love and Monsters, with her being treated badly by Elton. It was quite nice to have a moment with Pete, and I do think that specifically was a superbly acted scene. And I do think both Dingwall and Camille are brilliant actors. So to have those two finally bounce off each other after 2 series of build-up is quite nice. And I agree, like I said, David's superb. Billy really sells those final moments. A very underrated performance in this one was, I can't even remember his name, to be fair, Rahesh, I think, maybe. Down in this,
his name I think is Ravi Patel, but I could be wrong.
That's it, yeah. Down in the Sphere Room, I think he was excellent. And when he was asked to kneel, I think he had a lot of nuance in his performance. Just like, what for? And it's just like his disbelief with Samuel being Mickey as well. It's just moments like this, and when the Doctor is explaining the void and he says, "What's the void?" It's just little things and nuances to his performance that really sells, him being a scientist, but also him being confused at the sphere and the aspect of it. So yeah, performances all round, in my opinion, are excellent. And even the actress who plays Yvonne in episode 2, when she's about to be killed, I don't know if you guys noticed, but her voice is slightly off. It was because she was ill during filming. And, considering she was ill, I think she delivers a pretty fucking great performance. And especially when that, I kind of paid attention to just like her face a bit more to see if you could kind of tell that she was ill. And she is kind of very red. She's very sweaty. So bless her, she was trying her best when she was clearly down with the fever or something. But yeah, I have no real notes besides the performances are generally excellent. One thing that I think kind of lets it down, and this is more so about the writing, to be fair, is I don't think Mickey has much to do, and perhaps him saving Rose at the end. Also, I think that would have been a bad decision anyway, and I don't agree with it being a surrogate thing, by the way. I think it's more so Rose having that fatherly bond, because, when Pete comes in to save her, the emphasis of that is her looking at him, like she does a double take of, and that's kind of the thing that starts in the first 2-parter in the series. She looks to him for like a father figure. Like it's
the conclusion to his arc, though, because like I said, throughout Rise of the Cybermen, it just feels like, "You're not my daughter. I don't have a daughter." Blah blah blah. And so him ultimately saving her is him accepting her as his daughter, even though she's not.
I suppose so, and I guess you do have later in the episode, you do have the moment of like they're in his mansion Albany, like with his money, and they're really enjoying life. So he accepted that, I guess so. But after that moment, he doesn't have any more speaking lines, so it doesn't really reinforce that. But my point was, whilst I would say that Mickey saving her would have been the wrong call, it may have given him something more to do in this episode.
I think it's fine. The one that kind of stumbles and touches the Genesis Ark and has that kind of, well, it would have happened anyway, and it's fine. I don't mind what Mickey does or doesn't do, to be honest. But
I suppose so. But when you have especially in, for example, Journey's End, when you've got the entire cast from Zero and all of them have something to do, you've got very quippy lines that Mickey gets with Captain Jack about Captain Cheesecake. And you can speak, I don't know what the other guy said, but you have those moments. Whereas in this one, you don't really have that. You have Mickey, in Army of Ghosts, being very brave and confronting what he thought to be the Cybermen. Whereas in Doomsday, he kind of loses it, and he has, a few little lines about "Oh yeah, tell me about it," when the Dalek says, "Oh, the female's heartbeat is increased." However, beyond that, he doesn't really have much. besides Jake, which I quite liked as well, I completely forgot about, I think his name's Andrew. Excellent performance. And, he has got absolutely solid to do, but he's more memorable than Mickey, in my opinion. And I feel like that's a personal thing because I want him to be in more episodes, and he does as well. So, Russell, if you're going to continue beyond the Christmas special coming up this year, bring back Jake. Why not? Have a little follow-up story. I don't know how or why, but just make it happen. To be fair, he looks completely different 20 years on, so cast him in a different role. But
I just want to jump in and say that just for the sake of clarity, it's Andrew Hayden Smith who plays Jake, and the character was Dr. Raj Singh, portrayed by actor Raji James, that you were talking about earlier, because I got it completely wrong. I named a different actor who's actually American.
Sorry, but just
finished in that episode as well.
Pass it on. The first Cyberman 2-parter, I feel like this one sticks out like a sore thumb with Mickey because that 2-parter, especially in the final part of it does have a lot of emphasis on Mickey and his relationship with his nan and Rose and, the Doctor, like when he leaves. Mm. And it's like him becoming his own person and character, whereas in this story, he kind of he comes back into this universe, but he kind of reverts back to just being the side piece of the Doctor and Rose. And I feel like it's a big step back for his character.
Yeah, I guess. But anyway, I'm going to move us on. We're way behind. Even you have to edit this, and I have so much else to get through just yet. So super quickly, then the direction is obviously by Graeme Harper. I'm sure fans will know he directed in the classic series, notably The Caves of Androzani and I think Revelation of the Daleks. He has a penchant for including a distorted image of a main character, which is present in the story. I did notice a few times. It's not included in every story he's directed for BBC Wales, but seen often enough to be considered a directorial signature. Similar distortion is achieved with the use of magnifying glasses in Unicorn and the Wasp and Utopia, a curved window in Journey's End, and mirrors in Turn Left. And this time, yes, it's the Doctor who gets the Harper treatment as he's looking through some kind of big magnifying glass thing in Torchwood. I did notice. Other than that, I just think, he's really good at building tension, giving stuff room to breathe, giving the action a sense of scale. The cool Cybermen cutting through reveal is, yes, it's cliche, but it works. Cliffhanger works and everything. Lots of cool close-ups, slow-mo when it's necessary. That great ending, I think, is at least in part due to the director and how it's played and given that time as well. So, over to you guys. Will, any thoughts on the direction of this very quickly?
Yeah, very briefly, because I spoke way too much this episode. I think it is generally impressive. There is one moment where I don't really like. It's when they first go into Torchwood, and then Yvonne says, "Welcome to Torchwood," and then the music climaxes, whereas I'm just like, oh, wow, a warehouse. Like, you have the spaceship, but it's in the very top left of the frame, and you don't really see it until, you get the car away of the engines. And then it's like, okay, that's good for scale, but the initial shot is like, oh, great, a warehouse. You don't really get the scale of, like, the alien artifacts. Beyond that, though, I think it is generally perfect. I think that bridge bow was excellent. And like you said earlier, the scale is, ever present with the amount of Cybermen, the Daleks, but also just like, it is a shoestring budget. You've got like, when they are being sucked into the void, you've got the humans like, walking out of behind bins and behind stairs onto the streets, and you have the budget limitations with that. But there was also one moment, is a very, very little thing, but I've hated it every single time I watch this, and it's in Army of Ghosts when the Cybermen are revealed to be, from the ghosts, and you've got the news presenter saying they're not
ghosts, they're metal
men, and then the VFX and the sound effects aren't applied, so it literally looks like the guy is screaming and dying because the Cyberman is putting its hands on his shoulders because they haven't included sound effects or the VFX, and I hate that moment.
Fair enough.
But yeah,
you were getting strangled or something stupid. But
beyond that, impressive. And it was one of those rare instances where a director from Classic Who, like you said, comes back from Modern Who, and I know Russell and Moffat specifically, especially said that they wouldn't really want to work with, and it was quite rude, the comments that they made. They wouldn't really want to work with Classic Who writers and directors, which was a shame. Whereas it's this instance where I think it really pays off, because this director obviously does come back. And I would say his stuff in Modern Who is even better than his stuff in Classic Who, which, considering he did Genesis, is like fucking impressive.
Not Genesis, he did do a Revelation of the Daleks and Caves of
Revelation, yeah, that's it, which is not a badly directed story by any means.
No, and Caves of Androzani is highly regarded, and part of that is the direction. So, yeah, I would say.
Although you hate it.
Although I don't love it. But, yeah. DK, any thoughts on the direction very quick?
The aforementioned bridge battle, that looks good. And I love the slow down at the end where Rose gets pulled, getting pulled towards the void. Mm-hmm. I think there's really good shots in there, and I think it wouldn't be as memorable and emotional without some really good direction on that. And I think he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, if you have access to the Doctor Who Confidential, actually, there is a full breakdown of how Graeme Harper filmed that, which is really fascinating and worth a look, because he says himself it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle, because they film Billy on a trolley at one point that they have to sort of airbrush out as for falling backwards. Sometimes she's hanging from the ceiling, but the camera's turned to make it look like she's being blown forward and everything. So it is really a kind of puzzle, and it's amazing that it comes together that well when you see all the pieces that went into it.
I also love the editing on the bit where they're trapped on either side of the breach wall.
Yes.
And Tennant puts his hand on the wall, and you can swear that Rose feels it because she notices, moves her hand. I think that little section works really well at conveying the emotion as well. I think that there's some good direction going on there.
Yeah, there was actually a moment when the Doctor was in Pete's World earlier in the episode where he puts his hand on the exact part of the wall that Rose does later, and I think that was perhaps an intentional little thing, but I've never noticed that before, and that was quite nice. The fact that the Doctor and Rose were standing in the exact same position in Pete's World, pressing their hand up against the wall.
Cool. I was going to move to the VFX production design, but I don't have very much to say about that other than to say, if anybody's interested, the last scene of the episode, Catherine Tate's appearance, was filmed on the 31st of March, 2 months after filming for the rest of the episode had been done. And it was actually filmed during the wrap party for the series. And to ensure secrecy about everything that was happening with Catherine Tate, Graeme Harper was not actually told about that scene until the last possible second. So they were trying to keep that a secret. And I just recall the first time I saw that, by the way, I was really thrown, because it's such a comedically played performance, and I only knew Catherine Tate as a comedian that I really thought it was a tie-in to some comic relief thing, that we'd switched from the show being the serious part and then moved into a sketch or something. I didn't think it was relevant to she's going to be the companion in this Christmas special, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Any thoughts on the VFX production design that we haven't mentioned?
The only thing that and it still bugs me, and I know it's a budget thing, and they probably didn't have the time or budget to do the renders, is that when it actually cuts to the interior of Torchwood and everything's getting sucked into the void, all you see are Daleks and no Cybermen.
Will did mention that, but I think there's a story reason for it. So.
There is not. Thank you, DK.
I maintain there is, but okay.
It's down to interpretation, to be fair.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, music and sound I wanted to just spend a little bit of time on, because I do think it's important, and I love the music in this episode, especially the end music. I think it's some of Murray Gold's best. You can argue it's too much if you like. I don't think it is. I love the Cyberman theme creeping in during the ghost shifts, so that you could be aware if you knew that thing, and the sort of cliffhanger, the pounding theme leading to the Daleks reveal. But yeah, as well as using existing music like the themes for the Daleks, Cybermen and Rose, Murray Gold specially composed a piece of music for Rose's farewell entitled Doomsday, which featured vocal work from Melanie Pappenheim. Instead of using the swelling violins that Davies and the rest of the production team had expected, Gold took a minimalist approach. When pitching the track to the production team, Gold described the track as representing Rose's unbridled energy and determination as she searches for the Doctor. He later said, I wanted to get that kind of throbbing sort of hurt sound of quite emotional rock, because I thought that's what Rose would do if she was hurting and ran up to her bedroom and locked herself in her room and had a good old cry, really. The piece uses the same vocal work from Rose when Rose first enters the TARDIS, thus creating a bookend effect. It's a favourite among fans and of executive producer Julie Gardner, and is one of the reasons, along with Pappenheim's overall contribution and Song for 10 from the Christmas Invasion, that the soundtrack of both series was released several months later. And I did notice this time, Murray Gold's theme to the Torchwood television series debuts in this episode as incidental music. You'll know it.
Did you not pick up on that?
Not until this time around, and then I was like, oh, yeah, that's Torchwood theme. So, any thoughts at all on the music from you guys then, starting with you, Will?
I just thought it was sublime throughout, to be honest. And I think he perfected, the throbbing towards the end, when she's telling the story to the family in front of the fireplace. That scene, to me, the camera quality does look quite dated, but to keep it on for the music, I can't really fault it. Again, it crescendos like in that scene where it's like, welcome to Torchwood. It's like, I don't think that what's on screen justifies it. But otherwise, I think it's what, obviously, like you said, it's the jigsaw puzzles with the moment of like Rose like being sucked into the void and hanging on for dear life. I'm not trying to downplay the effort that went into that, but I think a large part of what made it so effective, and the scene with Jackie and Pete is, the music is sublime, and in the moments where it doesn't need to be there, it's just as sublime, because I think a thing in the new Russell T Davies era is every single scene seems to need to have music to make you force feel an emotion, whereas this has its subdued moments, whereas when, it is only a finale, it's going to be epic. When the music needs to ramp up, it does. So, it knows when it needs to ramp it up, and it knows when it needs to be quiet. So, it's perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I love that last theme. I think it's Murray Gold's best work, because even if you do think it's unnecessary, it's just such a powerful thing. It gets me emotional even without the context when you're listening to it on the soundtrack. So, absolutely. DK, any thoughts from you on the music? Sorry.
No, I just agree with you guys. I think it's a fantastic soundtrack. I think the Doomsday track is one of the most memorable tracks, along with Madman in a Box, from the entirety of New Who. Yes. And this soundtrack I had on loop for so long when it was released. I absolutely adore the soundtrack on this. I can't fault it.
It's really good, I have to agree, yeah. Okay, so, we'll come back and give our final thoughts then and everything, and our conclusions and score soon. Hopefully Will have edited this down to a reasonable amount, and I'm glad I'm not doing this one. But before we do that, we wanted to get your thoughts, whether it be critics or audiences. So without any more further ado, we are going to open the Subwave network. So, and Will, I believe you have a critics response. I wanted to start with that because I feel like the contemporary critics response is very telling of how it was regarded back then, these episodes, and it might be a bit different perhaps than what the audience response is. So, Will, have you got the critics response, and would you like to read it out for us?
Yes. So, first of all, is some statistics. So, Army of Ghosts was watched by 8.19 million viewers and was the 7th most watched program of the week, behind 4 World Cup games and 2 episodes of Coronation Street. The episode's appreciation index was 86, above the baseline of 77 for drama series. The finalized average viewing figure for Doomsday was 8.22 million viewers and was, excepting World Cup games, the 2nd most watched television program of the week, behind an episode of, again, Coronation Street, and 8th most watched overall. Army of Ghosts was generally well received by critics. The Stage commented that the episode was a tense contest, full of drama, tears, adversity, and the 2 powerful forces coming face to face in the ultimate battle. The author of the review then stated that the cliffhanger increased his affection of the show. Now, which one? Of Rose leaving or of Donna?
The cliffhanger to part 1, because that was just about Army of Ghosts at first.
Okay. The Guardian commented that the episode was Who back at his best, while the people complimented the humour of the scene of the Doctor channel surfing, which personally I thought went on for a bit too long in my
I didn't like that.
Because I thought that was like a 30-second gag, but it turned out to be like a whole minute and a half. I was like, oh, come on.
Like DK said, the EastEnders gag goes on way too long anyway, when you're like, the only spirits research, just no.
Honestly, I thought that was the best moment of it. And then you had the Asian lady going crazy as well, and you had the Asian ladies with the ghosts in the shirts. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, true.
And then they also complimented the pacing of the episode and the revelation of both the Cybermen and the Daleks, concluding that you couldn't ask for a much better cliffhanger. The story, Army of Ghosts Doomsday, was nominated for a 2007 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form. It is the first episode of Doctor Who to receive a perfect 10 rating on IGN, who congratulated Davies on making an action-packed episode so emotional. Television Without Pity gave the episode an A+ rating. The Stage commented that the Dalek-Cyberman conflict was the only thing worth watching. Ouch. At the weekend. Oh, so it was positive about Who, but nothing about the World Cup. Clearly he doesn't like football. And that the parting scene was beautifully written and movingly played, with not a dry eye in the universe. Dec Hogan of Digital Spy felt that the episode was beautifully balanced with moments of high excitement and touching poignancy, and that the single oil tear shed by the Cyberman version of HoM was a nice touch. I do agree with that as well. He criticised Catherine Tate's appearance as being unnecessary to end the episode and for breaking the mood. I don't agree with this. However, I believe it's Journey's End, when the original ending was going to have the Cyberman, that was going to lead into the next Doctor. I reckon that would have been a mistake, but it works well here.
Okay.
However, this guy disagrees. As for Stephen Brooke of The Guardian, he thought that the episode was a high point of the modern series, highly emotional, scary, and genuinely exciting, whilst Rose's departure was brilliantly handled. Agree with all of that. And finally, in a 2014 poll by SFX, 90,000 readers voted the farewell scene between the Doctor and Rose as the greatest sci-fi moment ever. And I think that is, probably a case of it being done so closely to the airing of the episode.
Yes.
Just how Day of the Doctor was universally seen as the best episode ever around 2013, whereas it's in a lot of people's top 10s now, but a lot of people have just reverted back to episodes like Girl in the Fireplace, Genesis of the Daleks, Remembrance of the Daleks, things like that. So recency bias was probably a part to play in that, because think about nowadays. Think about the audience interaction in a minute, but also, DK especially. It's I feel like Russell was kind of tainted his legacy a little bit, especially when it comes to Doctor Who, by coming back, because I feel like a lot of people say his newest era kind of exposed flaws in his first era. And whilst I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what's been said about that today and just generally in the community, I just have to put out there that I do think his first era has held up incredibly, incredibly well. And, I don't think any less of it just because of his new era. But yeah, that was the critics review. I'm not a critic by any means. I like the sound of my own voice today, apparently. But audience section, Michael, pass back to you.
Rather typically, since we are pressed for time, I have more than I think I've had in ages of the audience response, but I want to try and get through it because it gives a good impression. Although you will notice that the Daleks and the Cybermen groups tend to favour the people that, they are fans of when we get into talking about those parts, so listen out for that. First of all, though, from Hugh Game Show's Discord, actually, Richard, I'm not sure what his surname is, it just says Richard. Garnett. Okay, fair enough. Richard Garnett says, a really epic finale. I think it was a great show of both Daleks and Cybermen, with a key showing that Daleks are way stronger, but Cybermen can adapt and outnumber. A show of strength from both till the Daleks outnumber, showing how truly screwed everyone is. It's also really good seeing the humans and how they fare in the overwhelming face of two unstoppable forces. Makes me think of the Alien v Predator slogan, whoever wins, we lose. I never liked the Rose Doctor romance, but this was a good ending to that arc. Shout out to one of the best scenes in the entire show, the Dalek versus Cybermen conversation, with cracking burns like, this is not war, this is pest control, and Daleks have no concept of elegance. This is evident. 4.5 stars. Ending was a little too easy. Part one was a little too slow burn, and it tried to be emotional a little too much, like I did my duty, and the amount of focus on Rose falling into the void for a Pete Ex Machina. So, moving on to the Facebook group Cybermen Supremacy. Barry J. Porter says the first part was really good, the second not so much, and had typical RTD dragging out the end. James Hunt says, it's more mixed for me than either a hit or a miss. I do like part of the writing and the dialogue exchange in Doomsday, like when the Dalek cult of Skaro were being smart-ass to the Cybermen. Unfortunately, Doomsday didn't hit me as much harder as it did in The Parting of the Ways, and that has to do with Rose's temporary departure. Lawrence Wilson says episodes went downhill when the Daleks showed up. Okay. David Michael Brooks says the first part is better than the second part, as per normal with RTD. Personally, I also don't think the Doctor should have any love interest at all. And Barry J. Porter replies, yep, it's so predictable with RTD, a big build-up to no more than a wet fart. Oof. Ian O'Brien says, I was disappointed with the Daleks and Cybermen clash. Not what I'd hoped. I'd found Army of Ghosts better than Doomsday, but I found in New Who story arcs aren't resolved well. The Cult of Skaro idea was good. As for Rose's departure, I found it boring and thought, get on with it. People moan about the 15th Doctor crying, Ken blubbering over Rose, and he's an alien over 1,000 years old. Eye roll emoji. Yikes. From the group Dalek Earth Force, David Morgan says, pity this never happened in the original series, as I'd have liked to have seen how they dealt with the two. As a guest, there wouldn't have been any pest control lines, but something more sophisticated between them. Ouch. Ewan Clement disagrees and says, loved it. Great story. This is not war. This is pest control. Al Watson says, one of the top episodes, so I say hit for me. Martin Stone Hennessy says the Daleks wipe the floor with the Cybermen, as it should be, especially for the Cybermen, who are still products of advanced Earth technology, after all. Andrew McCartney says Daleks versus Cybermen was good, but I'd love to see it in a death battle. Dan Loke says, my only problem with the Series 2 finale is how the Cult of Skaro are portrayed. They act like your regular Dalek, and there's no hint that they're an elite group of Daleks. I much prefer their portrayal in Daleks in Manhattan Evolution of the Daleks. Yikes. As each member is given a distinct personality. Sek is the imaginative leader, Thay is outspoken and not afraid to question his leader, Khan is the aggressive and devious one, and Jast is the quiet scientist who speaks only when spoken to or to back up his fellow members. Didn't see any of that, but good for you. From the group NERD, Becca Morgan says, hit, so much a hit. The music at the end, chef's kiss. Yeah. Back to Cybermen supremacy now. Jamie H. Lee says, miss, too much focus on Rosa's mum and Pete getting back together, and the ghosts were a joke. Craig Sanwell says, miss, too much silliness. The Dalek Cybermen banter was irritating. Ooh. Tony Ingram says, sorry, but despite some nice moments, it's a miss for me. I loathe the Dr. Rose relationship. It makes no sense. And the Pete's World Cybermen just don't have the impact of the earlier versions. They might just as well be robots.
Ouch, this is so harsh. I wasn't expecting
right?
it to be this bad.
This is why I wanted the critics' response on record as well. Charlie Memory says my favourite 2 episodes ever, however, rather against the grain, shall we say. From the group The Classic Whovian, Christopher Latham says, what I loved most about it was hearing Murray Gold speak at Gallifrey 1 along these lines. Quote, so I spoke to Russell and he was like, it needs to be big with strings and he's lost her and it's so sad and it's soaring. What did I give him instead? Dum, 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 dum. And I believe that may be it. Let me just check. No, there's more. From Roger's Doctor Who Gold group, Paul Morton says, I think Pete's change of heart was realistic and believable. Overall, I think the episode was highly enjoyable, and if you like Rose with the Doctor, sad as well. Paul Morton again says, I enjoyed the episode and the Daleks totally wiped the floor with the Cybermen, but these are the Cybers versions. They'd never met the Cybermen before, as their weapons were made to fight humans. The original Mondasian Cybermen might fare better if they ever fight. Bit of copium, I suspect, there on Paul's part. Back to Cybermen supremacy. Phil Aiden says the Cybermen should have taken out at least one Dalek. They just came across as fodder, which made the battle much less fun than it could have been.
The one that was shot by the gun, by all accounts, it should have destroyed it. Why not destroy it? I agree.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that as well. And that is the end this time of the audience response, which, I was kind of shocked how negative at least some of it is, actually, because I thought the story was better regarded, but a lot of people saying miss. Anyway, moving on. You guys shocked by any of that?
I was shocked by how critical some people are of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of it, but I do understand that some people are very strong with like one opinion, i.e. they don't like Rose and the Doctor romance. That they write off the entire episode, and I don't like that aspect of like people nowadays on Twitter, especially, is like don't like one thing. Okay, that ruins the entire episode. You've got to think about the entire episode, like we are, when forming a conclusion, because it seems like they were hyperfixated on one aspect, whether it be in the Dalek and Cybermen or Rose, and there are other aspects and elements to the episode and the production that there will be positives too, and negatives, conversely.
Yes, yeah, there's a general lack of nuance when it comes to these things. I think people forget that you can not like a particular element but still think it's well written. So you don't have to say, I don't like the Doctor and Rose together, so everything that's ever been written for them is crap. Like, no, it can still be well written and you don't agree with it.
Absolutely. What we're saying, audience, is you guys are dumb.
I'm not saying that. Just But yeah, so we've given your thoughts, so it's time to finish up with our thoughts, starting as I always do on my episodes with our favourite character, moment, and line. And Will, since you're the guest, I'm going to come to you first to give us all three, if you don't mind.
Ooh, you put me on the spot here. Okay, favourite scene, that was one of them, right?
Favourite character, moment, or scene, and then line, yeah.
Character would probably be the Doctor. Very basic, but I think it is one of David Tennant's best performances. Favorite line, probably I mentioned earlier about Rose's heartbeat increasing. I thought that was kind of funny. And what was the last bit? What was the last one?
Favorite moment or scene?
What really hurt me earlier was the criticism of the Jackie and Pete scene, because I feel like beyond the ultimate scene where, you know, Rose is hanging on for dear life, the most emotion I feel in this episode is between those two, and I feel like it's such a lovely accumulation of two series.
Awesome. TK, over to you for your three favourite character, moment, or scene, and line.
Favourite scene is the breach closing and those two on either side of the void. Favourite character, I did go in with this fully intending to be the Doctor. It's after watching it, it's got to be Rose, because I can remember when it was rumored to be coming back and Billie Piper was going to be the companion. I remember people saying, "Oh my God, the girl that sings 'Cause We Want To." No way. And not only did she shut them up, but I think she's an amazing actress, and the range of emotions she shows in this, and not just in the big scenes, like, when they're separated, but in the little moments, like when she tells the Doctor that her mum's still on board. She has a look there that is straight lifted from Christopher Eccleston's Doctor. And it's like she's picked up on it. And then later with the scene and Pete and Jackie, when they go to embrace each other, she has a look. You can tell that Rose's heart is in her throat at this point. And I just think that Piper's acting in this is phenomenal. And so it's got to be Rose. Line, it's going to have to be, Pete, I knew you when you were dead.
Fair enough.
You got her name.
So yeah, then I'll give you mine then. My favourite character, although you are making me rethink it a little bit now, DK, so well done. But I did go with the Doctor, even though it's mixed. I think he gets plenty of great moments in this story. And I think he also sells the ending. You know, it's not just Rose that's devastated on the separation, so I'll give him credit as well. My favourite moment or scene is the end moments, the separation of the Doctor and Rose. Murray Gold's score and the acting completely suck you in, though I will say the Dalek Cybermen smack talk is a very close second. I've always liked that. And my favourite line is from the Doctor. Technology using the one thing a Dalek can't do, touch, sealed inside your casing. Not feeling anything ever, from birth to death, locked inside a cold metal cage, completely alone. And that explains your voice. No wonder you scream. Oh, that is great writing. Like, where is that all of the time, RTD? So, yeah. Just remains then for us to give our conclusion and our scores out of 5 stars, as always. And again, Will, you're the guest, so we'll start with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I don't have anything written down, so I'll just wing this bit. I do think it was a really strong episode, and it did have a lot of like things to balance out, and with, of course, Rose's departure and also the Daleks and the Cybermen, it was always going to be an epic. It was always going to be bombastic and huge, and scale was sold for me. A big part of that was to do with the direction. I think it is brilliantly directed, performed. I do feel like it is quite slightly written on a slight, so to say, as in a kind of half-assed sometimes. However, like Michael said earlier, I feel like the sci-fi elements were fantastically explained. However, like we alluded to earlier as well, you can just about buy the background radiation, pulling them all in, but it did kind of come out of nowhere in that respect. The music was fantastic. And to me, there wasn't really moments where the budget being small really showed, beside that one moment where, you know, the people like come out from behind stairs in a bin to, you know, look at the Cybermen and Daleks being taken and stuff like that. So yeah, I do think it's good, but not much better than that, just because of how it was written. And we've touched upon that regularly throughout the episode. So I will give this story, we're doing out of 5, right?
Yes, yeah.
3.5 out of 5.
Okay. And over to you then, DK, for your thoughts and score.
Yeah, it's well remembered, and for the most part, it's well remembered correctly. It's got some iconic moments in it, and the fact that RTD went into a finale determined to make it bigger and better than the one before, and he succeeded. Not only that, but it has some real emotional depth to this one. Having said that, it's not aged very well. Some of it looks quite pantomime. Some of the performances in part 1 especially aren't that amazing. The TV section, as we've touched upon, goes on way too long. Some of the humour seems a little forced, and because of that, I think it's not as good as everybody initially believed. So I'm just going to give it 4 out of 5 this time.
Okay, and a 4 out of 5 from DK. So, I'll cue up my essay, as usual, as I always say. I don't know why this doesn't sit fonder in my memory when I think back on Doctor Who generally. Watching it again, it's undeniable how much of this works. The balancing act it pulls off in order to remain coherent, never mind satisfying, is genuinely impressive. Russell T Davies somehow combines a Cyberman invasion, a Dalek prison escape, an interspecies war, the introduction of Torchwood, the departure of Rose, and still delivers 90 minutes of compelling television without it ever truly feeling overstuffed or bogged down. But there are things that don't work. Some plot conveniences don't hold up to scrutiny. There are flashes of dodgy acting and a couple of moments veer just the wrong side of cheesy. But then you get Daleks and Cybermen delivering smack talk worthy of a wrestling promo, a real sense of scale, literal and emotional, satisfying payoffs to multiple plot lines, and that now famous, emotionally devastating separation scene. And I think that's where my biggest problem lies. It's no fault of these episodes themselves, but wringing this level of emotion from a supposedly permanent goodbye loses some power when you know the door was never really closed. Despite the protestations of impossibility here, it would be reopened just 2 years later. On a wider story level, it also just feels like the show itself never truly moved on from the Doctor and Rose, something only reinforced by the groan-worthy recent appearance of a regenerated Doctor with Rose's face and the promise/threat of yet another sequel to this story coming at Christmas. I really hope it doesn't get diluted any further. If this had been allowed to stand on its own, it absolutely would have remained one of the defining high points of modern Doctor Who. Some will call it overrated because of how famous it became, but the reputation is deserved if you're invested in the Doctor and Rose relationship. Don't make me keep caring less and less. And I also gave it a 4 out of 5, actually. So, yeah. So putting those scores together, dividing by the three of us here, gives a final score for Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, somewhat surprisingly, I would say, of just 3.8 out of 5. So, yeah, not that high, really. Probably one of our lower Cyberman-related episodes. So we wipe our tears and hope not to be shocked by a surprise Catherine Tate. And it just remains for me to thank all of you who've listened so far. If you've enjoyed this, please do like, share, subscribe, interact on YouTube or on social media. Links to all that are in the link tree that is in the episode description. Naturally, I have to thank the two people who have reviewed this with me. First of all, DK, thank you for coming and being my usual stalwart co-host.
Not at all.
And do you have anywhere people can find you online? Because you did shock me recently during a recording with some actual mention of social media.
No, I'll say no for now. I'm gonna leave that until that episode actually goes out.
Okay, no problem. And Will, thank you for joining us and being very, very verbose when it comes to your thoughts on this episode.
I mean, you told me off a few years ago for having solid as my conclusion, so I'm just making up for all these years later. To be honest with you, that was
that.
That was amusing.
Yeah, no, I thought it was comedy genius, but then, Mike, you were not happy with me privately. So no,
I probably should have laughed more at it because that was kind of genius.
I had nothing to say really, and I to be fair, I was thorough during the recording of that if people were actually listening throughout, they would have got my thoughts anyway. But no, I'm just making up for that. So yeah, thank you for having me, and it's been nice after so long to talk not only about something that we're interested in, but for it to be Doctor Who as well. this is the thing that I can yap about for hours and hours and hours. So, yeah, the fact that we had 2 other guests lined up for this as well. It's kind of crazy. We had Josh and Cliff.
Yeah, this would have been a full-on 6-hour telethon if we'd had anyone else.
Especially with Cliff. I don't know what Josh is like, but Cliff especially, God, that guy can talk. So we'd have been here for about until like 10 p.m.
Fair enough. So before we shut you up finally, did you have anywhere people can find you online? And I know you're going to want to plug some upcoming Who Game Show stuff, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is Will Templar 03, and my YouTube channel is Who Game Shows, all one word, where I do Doctor Who game shows. Michael Wilson is a chaser. He's coming back to do a chase episode for the channel, and DK has regularly appeared as well in House of Games Series 2, and
he's coming up on a chase episode as well.
And a chase episode that is to come out at the end of June. No, his episode is already out. Yeah, DK's already out.
I have kind of roped him into doing one of mine, by the way.
Yeah, so we'll get to it. We'll get on it, and 5 more episodes of Series 2. Episodes 5 to 9 are coming out 3rd week of June. So keep an eye out for that if you're into Doctor Who quizzing.
Awesome, and that's Who Game Show's channel on YouTube, or you can follow Will on Instagram. It'll all be promoted there. And like Rose, we're leaving the Doctor behind for now, but stay tuned, because in just 1 week we switch back over to that other beloved decades-old sci-fi franchise as Hit or Miss Star Trek returns for a new series of weekly episodes. If you want more Doctor Who, however, I personally will be guesting on An Adventure in Space and Time, the Thistle podcast, twice in June, reviewing the Tom Baker novel Scratchman and the Richard E. Grant Wilderness Years animation Scream of the Shalka. And myself, DK, and Stephen and Lynn from that podcast will be back here in September with a review of the 8th Doctor Big Finish Cyberman adventure, Human Resources. And, of course, we're always dropping new movie reviews on our sister podcast, Silver Screen, for the 6 people that are still watching it. Do check those out if you like. We really could use the views. And, in the meantime, take care of yourself. Don't touch anything that's been brought to you by the Daleks. And remember, if your enemy has guns and you don't, you've got the moral high ground. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Hit or Miss Doctor Who podcast, part of the Hit or Miss Who Trek channel. Hit or Miss Doctor Who is hosted by Mike Wilson and DK. Behind the scenes and additional material by DK, scripted, produced, and edited by Mike Wilson. Adapted from an original podcast created by Will Templar. Follow us on YouTube, your podcatcher of choice, and our social media. Links to all of these can be found by clicking on the link tree in the episode descriptions. This podcast is a Media Matters original production. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast through all of time and space. We'll be back for another thrilling TARDIS trip soon, but for now, Doctor, I let you go.